Imagine spending like 2 decades building the absolute perfect storefront, right, on the busiest street in the entire world.
Oh, yeah, the dream scenario.
Right. You've got the window displays completely optimized, your signage is perfect, the foot traffic is just incredible. And then, I mean, practically overnight, someone just boards up your doors,
Just shuts it down.
shuts it down, and they station this like hyper intelligent assistant out on the sidewalk instead. And that assistant just intercepts every single one of your customers, listens to what they want, reads them a quick summary of your products, and then just sends them on their way.
Wow, yeah.
You don't get the foot traffic anymore. The street has just fundamentally changed. And I mean, that is exactly what is happening to the internet right now.
It really is. It's a massive uh, structural realignment. I mean, for anyone out there who is trying to maintain visibility online,
Yeah.
the days of just relying on a user to click a link,
Yeah.
browse your landing page, and, synthesize the information themselves, those days are essentially over.
Yeah.
We are moving rapidly from an internet of destinations to an internet of conversational interfaces.
Welcome to the deep dive. If you're joining us, you probably already know that those traditional pipelines are just fracturing left and right, and you're looking for the actual mechanics of how to stay visible in this totally new reality.
Right, because the old playbook just doesn't work.
Exactly. So today we are decoding the blueprint for answer engine optimization, AEO maturity. We're pulling from chapter 22 of the search interface, a blueprint for AEO maturity.
It's a fantastic source.
It really is. And we're breaking down the specific strategies you need to thrive when search engines, stop routing clicks and start providing direct synthesis themselves. So, okay, let's unpack this. The core philosophy driving this whole shift really comes down to this one specific behavioral observation from the text.
Which is such a good quote.
It hits so hard. The quote is, don't optimize for a feature. Optimize for a behavior people want answers faster, with less effort and less regret.
Man, that concept of search regret, that is the unseen engine behind this whole paradigm shift.
Totally.
Think about the friction of traditional search, right?
Right.
You run a query, you open like 5 different tabs, you skim 3 marketing blogs that they just bury the actual answer under thousands of words of absolute fluff.
Oh, the life story before the recipe.
Yes, exactly. And then you realize you've just wasted 20 minutes. That feeling right there, that is regret. And the modern user just refuses to tolerate that friction anymore.
They demand instant synthesized clarity, and the platforms are just evolving to deliver exactly that.
Exactly.
Which means the metric for success completely changes for you. Like, we all know the traditional keyword-to-click pipeline is dying, but if the engine is holding on to the user and doing the summarizing itself, you really only win if you become the reference material that the AI assistant relies on to build that summary.
Precisely. Because, I mean, the AI is incredibly sophisticated, sure,
Yeah.
but it cannot generate facts out of thin air without hallucinating.
Right. It needs raw material.
It desperately needs raw material. What's fascinating here is that engines are summarizing more and routing fewer clicks, so brands only win if they become the safest, clearest, most reusable reference behind that completely new interface.
So the library hasn't burned down?
No.
It's more like, we've shifted to relying on a master librarian. Like, in the old SEO model, the search engine was basically the card catalog.
Right, exactly.
It gave you an aisle number and a shelf location, and then it was entirely on you to walk over, pull the book, and read the whole thing to find your answer.
We do all the heavy lifting.
Right. But now it's AEO. You walk in, you ask this highly complex, super contextual question, and that master librarian, the AI, doesn't just hand you a map. They've already read all the books.
Yeah.
And they synthesize the exact paragraph you need from like 3 different sources right there at the front desk.
And to get cited by that master librarian, your book, your content, has to be perfectly engineered for extraction. Like, you are no longer designing a page to keep a human scrolling for 10 minutes. You are designing a data structure that a machine can effortlessly parse, verify, and just lift.
Which, I mean, sounds terrifying for anyone creating content. If everything is changed, like if the platforms are constantly changing their interfaces, how do you even plan for that?
It feels impossible.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a chat window. Sometimes it's an AI overview. Sometimes it's voice.
Yeah.
It feels like trying to build a house on liquid.
And that's the trap a lot of organizations fall into right now. They try to optimize for the surface level, which is just pure chaos. The source makes this super clear. You have to sever your strategy from the UI.
Okay, so separate the fluctuating variables from the permanent stuff.
Exactly. You have to separate the chaos from the durable principles.
Let's draw that line for everyone listening. The fluctuating variables, those are the presentation layers. We know that the surface will keep changing.
Right. How much an engine summarizes versus how much it routes to your site, that's going to fluctuate quarter to quarter. The way they display a citation, like, is it a footnote, a link, a tiny little icon?
We have zero control over that.
Absolutely zero. And even the input methods are fluctuating. Users are moving so fluidly between voice, chat, text, taking pictures. You just cannot hard code a strategy for a specific layout anymore.
But beneath all that chaos, there are these 5 durable principles. The text says if your information satisfies these 5 criteria, it will get pulled into the interface, regardless of what that interface even looks like tomorrow.
Yes, the permanent elements.
Right, so number 1 is retrievable, meaning it's actually discoverable and accessible by the machines. That's basic table stakes.
Yep.
Number 2 is extractable, meaning structured, reusable blocks. Number 3 is trustworthy. Number 4 is helpful, which they define as offering decision support and showing trade-offs.
Very important.
And number 5 is maintained, meaning the truth is updated, no stale claims. But wait, let me play devil's advocate here for a second on trustworthy.
Okay, lay it on me.
That word gets thrown around constantly in marketing. But trust is inherently subjective, right? For humans, at least. Machines don't have a gut feeling. So how does a machine actually know I'm trustworthy?
That is the million-dollar question. For an answer engine, trust is not a sentiment. It is a mathematical probability. And the source explains that you build this algorithmic trust through 2 very specific mechanisms: boundaries and proof queues.
Boundaries and proof queues.
Okay.
We're done.
Because most traditional marketing content is just entirely unbounded. It makes these massive sweeping claims like, we are the ultimate solution for enterprise software.
Right, just shouting that you're the best.
Exactly. And a machine parses that, instantly finds conflicting information somewhere else, and assigns a very low probability of truth to your claim.
Okay, so a boundary restricts the claim to make it actually verifiable.
Yes. It's the difference between saying, we make the best running shoes in the world, which is unbounded, versus saying, our proprietary foam compresses 12% less on asphalt, making this the optimal shoe for urban marathoners.
Oh, wow. Okay. You have bounded the claim to a specific metric and a highly specific use case.
Exactly. And then the proof queue is the immediate validation of that boundary. You don't just assert the 12% compression and move on.
Right.
You immediately embed the independent pressure test data right there, or you link directly to the methodology page.
You provide the structured evidence right next to the claim.
Right. When an AI processes the bounded claim alongside that structured proof queue, the mathematical probability of that statement being true just skyrockets.
Yeah.
That is how a machine calculates trust.
It's verifiable logic, not persuasive rhetoric.
Exactly.
That completely reframes how you have to look at your entire content library. If information needs to be bounded, proven, and extractable, we are effectively abandoning the traditional landing page format altogether.
We really are. It forces us to abandon that old linear path.
Because replacing a single static keyword search with a multi-turn conversation just breaks the old pipeline. The classic SEO journey was a straight line. You target a keyword, you rank a page, you get a click. Done.
Dead simple, but that's gone.
Right. The new AEO sequence is conversational. It moves from question to answer to follow-ups to decision and finally to action.
And it's that follow-up stage that really trips companies up. A user doesn't just ask one thing and leave anymore. They're having a real dialogue.
Give me an example of how that plays out.
Okay, so say I ask an engine, what is predictive maintenance software? And the engine pulls your beautifully bounded definition. You win round 1.
Great.
But then the user replies to the AI, okay, but how does the implementation time compare to legacy systems? If your content library doesn't contain a structured, extractable comparison page answering that exact follow-up,
The engine drops you.
instantly it drops you and pivots to a competitor whose library actually has the depth to support that specific nuance. Search engines will simply route the user somewhere else mid-conversation.
You just become a dead end.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. These follow-ups aren't just restricted to text anymore. We are moving deeply into a multimodal reality.
Oh, this is huge.
People aren't just typing, they are taking out their phones, opening the camera, pointing it at a physical object, and asking, is this the right size? Or, show me what this looks like.
And this demands what the Force calls minimum multimodal readiness. Historically, websites have just used images as, like, decorative filler.
Yeah, stock photos of people pointing at a whiteboard.
Right. And those do absolutely zero work for an answer engine.
Wait, really? Because if it's an AI looking at the image to answer a user's question, it doesn't actually see the photo like a human does. It's parsing pixel data, sure, but it relies super heavily on the alt text and the surrounding captions to contextualize what it's even looking at.
That is the exact mechanism. The AI uses the text of the caption to anchor the context of the pixels.
So if your image caption is just some generic label, or worse, non-existent, that image is basically invisible to the engine when it tries to synthesize a visual answer.
Exactly. So your minimum multimodal readiness means you need clear visuals that actually explain differences, not decorative stuff. You need summarizing tables. And you need specific captions that define exactly what the image proves.
And internal links connecting those visuals back to your full answer library, right?
Yes, tying it all together.
Which logically leads to the next phase. If the engine is getting this good at parsing visual data and comparing products and carrying on a whole 5-turn conversation about implementation, it's not going to stop at just giving advice.
No, it's not.
Eventually, the user's going to say, great, configure the software for me, or book the flight.
And we are already seeing this. This is what the industry calls agentic experiences. AI isn't just answering questions anymore. It's going to complete tasks. It's transitioning into an autonomous agent that helps users choose, plan, book, configure, or purchase.
If that's true, then relying purely on informational content, even if it's really well structured, that's not enough of a defense. The source has this specific smart tip. The ultimate AEO mode is functional. It has to be a tool.
Yes. The tool mode. Calculators, selectors, dynamic checklists. Think about it from the AI agent's perspective. It can read 10 massive blog posts about how to choose the right enterprise server architecture.
Sounds exhausting.
Right. Or it can interact with a dynamic selector tool on your site that processes variables like user load, compliance needs, budget to output a perfectly customized plan.
The agent leverages your tool to do the work for the user. So one well-architected selector tool completely bypasses 10 competitors who just wrote like 5,000-word guides. The tool converts uncertainty into a confident next step.
Exactly. And this highlights a massive point.
Yeah.
The era of volume is over. The days of pumping out hundreds of generic SEO posts a month. That's an active liability now.
So what replaces volume?
Trust infrastructure. You need a trio of durable assets. First is your answer library. This is the structured hubs, the FAQs, the direct product comparisons.
Okay, the baseline extractable data.
Right. The second asset is your proof library. This is the mathematical trust we talked about.
Yep.
Methodology pages, case studies, independent benchmarks. It exists solely to validate the answer library.
And the third asset.
The reputation layer. This is your PR, expert commentary, community participation.
Why does that third one matter so much?
Because when these three work together, you aren't just publishing anymore. You are building an ecosystem that engines repeatedly reuse because it is externally validated.
Okay, so you know the philosophy. You understand the architecture. But how do you actually build this tomorrow?
Right, the tactical side. That brings us to the AEO maturity model. It outlined 4 levels of maturity. Level 1 is present. You show up sometimes, but you have issues with basic eligibility.
Right. Level 2 is reusable. You're getting cited consistently via extractable pages.
Yes. But then level 3 is trusted. This is where you become a category reference via PR and third-party proof.
Getting from reusable to trusted seems to be the biggest hurdle.
It absolutely is, because you can't just fix your website to get there. You need that reputation layer working for you off-site.
And then level 4 is preferred. You are the default source. You have proprietary data, custom tools, but there's a crucial warning from the text here. The gap between just being present and being preferred is widening every single quarter.
Exponentially. Staying at present and just hoping your legacy content survives is a massive pitfall.
Which brings us to the execution strategy, the 100-day roadmap. This is the sprint to overhaul your visibility.
Let's break it down.
So days 1 through 30, you focus entirely on the foundation. You're not writing massive new guides. You take 10 to 20 of your most critical pages and upgrade them to the answer page minimum standard.
Right. Strip out the narrative fluff, put the direct, bounded answer at the top, enforce strict headers, and anchor every major claim with a proof queue.
Then, days 31 to 60, you shift to building topic kits.
Because shallow libraries lose users during follow-ups, remember?
Exactly. So a topic kit is publishing a flagship definition page, explicitly linking it to a comparison page, which is linked to an implementation guide. all validated by original research. You map the entire conversational journey.
Yes. And finally, days 61 to 100, you scale, you build those agentic moats, the tools, and you create an executive scorecard measuring visibility, competition, and impact.
Which leads to my favorite line from the AEO pledge in the source. We have to stop relying on legacy metrics. We will measure AEO using citation share and outcomes, not vibes.
Not vibes. It's perfect.
Uh-huh.
You cannot look at a slight dip in raw traffic and panic. Raw traffic is shrinking everywhere because the engine is synthesizing the answer on the page.
You have to measure citation share.
Exactly. Are you the foundational truth the machine relies on?
So what does this all mean? Search platforms will inevitably shift. The UI will change. But if you build retrievable, reusable, trustworthy answers supported by proof and reinforced by reputation, you will keep winning. You are designing for a task-oriented journey now, not a static keyword.
And, it leaves us with a pretty wild final thought to ponder.
Let's hear it.
If search engines evolve into perfect agentic assistance tools that don't just answer questions but actively navigate these answer and proof libraries to autonomously book flights, buy software, or solve problems on our behalf, what happens to the traditional concept of browsing a website?
Oh, wow.
Right. Will casually surfing the web soon become a nostalgic vintage hobby while the actual work of the internet is done entirely machine to machine in the background?
That is a staggering thought. The internet just talking to itself to get our chores done?
It's coming faster than we think.
You definitely do not want to be the dusty aisle number on a discarded map. You want to be the exact verified data point the agent relies on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Start auditing your own content libraries for extractability today. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.